Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are 22 West Radio, the next wave of K-Beats. 22 West Radio is 22westmedia.com and 88.1 FM KKJZ HD3 Long Beach, Los Angeles. And you are listening to the Golden Spotlight. Yes, the show where every week I showcase a new individual and have them share their story. So at this time, I'd like my guest to please introduce yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Leticia Vasquez Wilson, and I'm an alumni, a proud 49er, and I'm happy to be here to talk a little bit about what I do and kind of my educational pathway. So thank you, Rob, for being here and for reaching out to me and asking for this interview. It's very much a pleasure.
No, I'd like to start off from the beginning. Tell me, what was life as a child growing up? Your K-12 years. What was it like?
It was. I grew up in a family, a big family, a family of actually 8. There were 6 kids, and of course my parents, and they made education a priority for us from the beginning. And we attended, I grew up in Southeast LA County and was actually born in the city of Compton and attended local parochial schools. And I attended high school at St. Pius X in Downey. And my last year of high school, I attended a local public school, which was Linwood High School. And I think it was that last year where my sister, actually when I was a junior, my sister started her freshman year here at Cal State Long Beach, and she was really the individual that introduced me to this campus, and that I can really say is the reason why I ended up attending Cal State Long Beach.
In high school, tell me, what were you into back then? Were you involved in clubs? Did you have a particular favorite activity at the time during high school?
Actually, in high school, I wasn't a stellar student. I did play sports. I was involved in some school activities, but I worked. I had a job. As soon as I turned 15 and a half, I went out, I looked for a job, and I started working after I got done with school. And so I didn't really have too much time, and I guess at that point, having a job and really being able to give myself the things I wanted to.
And how did the job come about? Was it that your siblings worked, so you decided you needed to too, or how did that come about?
Actually, I was a participant in a program. At the time it was called the JTPA program, which was a program that gave jobs to at-risk youth in the community. So when I was 15, I was recruited to be a part of that program, and my first job was actually at St. Francis Medical Center in the city of Linwood, and I worked at the hospital. I worked with seniors, and I helped feed them. I helped read the newspaper to them, and that was really my first job, my first time out in the workforce. And so I did that for, I think it was maybe a summer, and that really gave me enough experience to actually fill out an application and start, looking for a job outside of that.
And most would say that senior year is the most stressful year. Walk us through what was senior year like for you?
My senior year, by the time I was a senior, I had already been introduced to college life by my sister, and I had actually been very involved with coming to this campus with her. And she started introducing the concept of applying to this college at, I think it was my junior year. So by the time I was a senior, I was pretty much ready to apply for college. I didn't have a stressful school schedule. In fact, I was in school from like 8 to like 12:30, and because I had already completed all of my requirements that I needed to get, into to college. So I spent a lot of time working, saving money, making sure that I could take some time off my first semester here, and then just making sure that I completed all of the necessary paperwork that I needed to start my semester in the fall here at Cal State Long Beach.
Now, senior year is often a time of reflection where people are wondering, like, what's next in life? What am I going to do next? Tell me, what was it like for you? Did you know right away what did you want to do immediately following graduation?
I have to say that I was really excited by, this whole notion of being an independent person and not having to rely on my parents for anything. So I did spend a lot of time kind of reflecting, okay, I'm going to be independent. What am I going to do? What am I going to do to sustain myself? And so I did a lot of, soul searching, and that was when I decided that I needed to really be serious about pursuing higher education and to just be serious about studying, about spending a lot of time learning what my values were, learning what I was interested in, and giving myself the opportunity to broaden my experiences so that I can figure out what I was going to major in, because I really didn't know. I really wasn't sure what I was going to major in. So I spent a good time doing that my senior year in high school, and probably my first 2 years here at Cal State Long Beach.
And so, which brings me to my next question. How was it the first semester going to a whole different environment?
Yeah, you know what? I like I was telling you, I was born and raised in Compton, Linwood area, and when I applied to Cal State Long Beach, I wasn't really sure that this was going to be a place for me. So one of the things that I did do was I applied for, at that time, Cal State Long Beach had affirmative action programs. And so those affirmative action programs made it a point to recruit, minority students and bring them here to the campus to make sure that that everyone had access to higher education. And so I applied for a program called the Summer Bridge program, which basically is a program that that recruits minority students. They bring us here the semester before the fall semester begins. Actually, they bring us here during the summer. I think it's like an 8-week program. We live on campus, and they basically teach us about student life. And we took two classes. We lived on campus. We took an English class and a math class. And at the time, they didn't have the requirement that they have now. I think they have like a, you have to test out, I forget, the whoopee or something it's called.
For like how well
the
your
English
writing is?
Yeah, your writing.
Yeah.
Okay, so at that time that wasn't around. So what they did was, what the university did was, in order to prepare us to have the necessary skills that we needed to be successful, was they gave us the math and the English courses during the summer, and then they placed us in whatever courses were the courses where we tested at. And so anyhow, I spent the summer before my freshman year here in the Summer Bridge program, and it was really great because it gave me an opportunity to meet students from similar backgrounds as mine, and I got a chance to know the campus more, learn where all of the resources were, the library. They taught us how to use the library at that time. They were still using the I forget what the system is called, the index cards.
the Dewey Decimal?
Yeah, we had, so basically it was a program that really helped to get students acclimated to campus life. So I spent my whole summer basically doing that here. And I really think that that's one of the reasons why I was a successful student, because I had, I had that program available to me.
And, most students, sometimes they have to work because the books are so expensive. Tell us, did you have to work during school? What did you do?
I did actually, other than taking that summer off, I worked my way through college. I worked as a teacher's aide for LA Unified. I worked at Compton Avenue Elementary School. I worked at Anna Lee Elementary School in the city of Carson. And that was what I did. I spent the mornings from 7:30 to 11:30 working, and then I'd commute to school. And my last 2 years in college, I worked for a local battered women's shelter, and I did that on weekends, and I dedicated my last 2 years to just being on campus all the time.
And another part of college life, I know that some people, they'll, go to class and then they'll go straight home. But tell us, the benefits of like joining clubs and stuff. Did you get a chance to partake in stuff like that?
Actually, I did. I was very fortunate to be a part of the campus community here at Cal State Long Beach. I pledged a co-ed fraternity called Delta Sigma Chi, which is still very active here on campus. And it really, that organization really gave me the foundation, and gave me a foundation for a career in public service. A lot of what we did was do community service in the communities that we came from. And so we were required to do volunteer hours at youth centers, tutoring. During the holidays, we'd go to the local senior citizen centers and do caroling at the senior centers. We did a great deal of community service, and I did it all through the organization, Delta Sigma Chi.
What was it like to join, the requirements to join, a fraternity, for those that may not be aware of what a fraternity is and stuff?
Yeah, actually, this Delta Sigma Chi is very unique because it was actually established in the 80s, and it became a co-ed. We called it fraternity because initially it was just for men, and then they opened it up for the ladies. And so we're not really a part of the Greek system because we're co-ed, but I think that's going to change. At some point. But it was really, it was a great organization. Like I said, we were very active on campus. We every year, during the time I was here, I think 3 years in a row we won the campus's most spirited organization, and we were really proud of that.
Cool. Yeah, I noticed they have a Instagram. I think they just recently won an award just like this semester too. So it's pretty cool. I see them online. They're doing lots of volunteer stuff.
Yeah, it's really an amazing organization, and Delta Sigma Chi was started here at Cal State Long Beach, and in '86, I think it was in 1986, and now, I'm really proud to say that we have chapters all over the country, and a part of the reason why Delta Sigma Chi was established is to create a sense of community for Latino students. As historically, we were either not admitted to colleges and universities, or when we were admitted in smaller numbers. And so oftentimes it was very difficult, to find a sense of community once you got on campus. And for me as a Latina, it was very important, and I understood that I needed to find a support group that was going to give me the opportunity to network with people like myself who were first generation college students who came from families who didn't pursue higher education. And so Delta Sigma Chi provided me that support group. And you know how it is, when you're young, like you really learn how to navigate the system through your peers sometimes. And so just being able to ask my friend, hey, how did you do to get to this, phase? Or how did you decide what your major was? Like just having people to talk to about those things, I think is really important to students.
What do you think about like the media? I guess like the movies, they like portray fraternities as wild, or it's just parties and stuff like that.
Well, I have to say that, we had parties. We had fun. I mean, that's just a part of what young people do, and but we were also responsible, and we did our community service, and we went to work. Many of us worked, and some of us had family obligations. I think that that it's important to pull the positive from the fraternities / sororities / campus organizations, that are available for students. And I think overall, they provide students with a positive experience. And I just have to say that some of my best friends, are my fraternity or sorority sisters that I met when I was here in college. They're like my best friends. And those are relationships that I will have for the rest of my life, because those were the people that were there for me when I was trying to figure life out.
Yeah, sometimes the movies, they exaggerate the wildness of fraternities and stuff.
Right.
So, walk us through, like, how did you decide, oh, for sure, this is my major, this is what I want to do?
Okay, so I actually decided, I always had like this internal desire to be of service, okay? So that was one part of it, to help. And then the other part of me also had this burning desire to fight for like justice, because I saw so many like injustices in my community. Like I was telling you, I grew up in Compton, where things are not always fair, and you don't always, get, treated the same. And, one of the things that I really saw prevalent in our community was just law enforcement and the injustices that happen, not just with law enforcement in our communities, but with the whole criminal justice system. And so, I actually, when I was a junior, I found myself, actually when I was a sophomore, I find myself taking like criminal justice classes more than I needed to. And I found like the classes really, really interesting. And by the time like the year flew by, I just looked at my transcripts, and I realized that I had all A's in all of my criminal justice classes. And that was how I decided what I was going to major in. Because I was like, oh, okay. Because, sometimes you don't really get a chance to really reflect, and you take all these classes. Like, I really enjoyed the criminal justice program here. I thought it was really great because a lot of my professors had were either public defenders, were prosecutors, worked somehow in the criminal justice system as wardens. And just listening to their stories and the work that they did, I found very interesting. Now, the other classes that I really enjoyed were my Chicano studies classes, and I really found myself taking more than I needed. And at the time, Dr. Lopez was here. I'm sure he's not here anymore. And so my first semester I took a Chicano studies class, and it was the first time that I had ever learned about Mexican American history in the U.S. Of course, other than what my parents had taught me at home. And my parents are Mexican immigrants. So the history that I knew about me was the history from Mexico, not Mexican American history. So I got into my Chicano studies classes and started learning about the civil rights movement, the Chicano movement, the Black Power movement, and a lot of my professors were people that were actually involved in the movement, and that really gave me a really solid sense of identity, and more importantly, political enlightenment, and so those two, I think those two disciplines really had a big impact in my life and what I've decided, to do professionally. And, as I'm an elected official now. I served on the city council in Linwood from 2003 to 2007. And I have been a really strong advocate for our community because of the education and the foundation I got here at Cal State Long Beach.
Tell us about, the importance of mentors. Did you have any throughout, even just growing up and during your college years?
Mm-hmm. I have to say that I always had people in my life that didn't give up on me, especially when I made mistakes. And I think that that's really important to have, whether it's your parents, your siblings, and it's going to be somebody different at different points in your life, because sometimes your parents get tired of hearing it, your siblings are like, okay, I'm kind of done with you right now. But different people will wrap their arms around you at different points of your life, and I was very fortunate to have that. And like I said, it was either a teacher, a professor, somebody I worked with, because I always, I think I remember telling you that I always had a job. So my supervisors, or, there was just always somebody there. And I think that that's very, very important. I always looked for people that knew more than me, that had more than me, that I could just be around to just learn from. I was like a sponge, and I gravitated towards those kinds of people, because I understood, the importance of that.
So, while you were there on campus, how did you make the decision to join a fraternity? Did you already know someone at the time, or how did you go about making the decision?
Actually, my sister was 2 years ahead of me in school, and so she had exposed me when she was pledging, and I think I was a junior in high school, a sophomore, junior, and so she had exposed me during that time. And so really when I came on campus, I was what they call legacy. So it was like a no-brainer. It was like, okay, well, you're going to pledge, right? Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. And I just showed up. So I was kind of lucky in that regard.
Now, you had mentioned, all the various jobs and stuff. So I was wondering, how did you manage time management with especially midterms and finals? Those are always the most stressful times for students.
Yeah, it was really hard. It was hard, and when I was here, I just, sometimes I dropped the ball and things didn't get done. I had to drop a class. Other times I was able to manage a full load, and then the following semester, I'd have to withdraw from a class. So it was tough. It took me, some time to graduate, because I was juggling everything, and I was, in a sense, trying to really just do everything. But I got through it, so.
So walk us through the different degrees that you got.
So I have my Bachelor of Science degree in Criminal Justice from Cal State Long Beach, and then I also completed my master's degree in public policy administration from the Graduate School of public policy and administration from Cal State Long Beach as well. It was kind of a natural for me after I finished my undergrad. I was like, I guess I'll just start my master's program. And so I did that. And then, as I mentioned to you, I ran for office. I served on the Linwood City Council, and it was actually after my term on the City Council that I went back to school and earned a second master's degree in education.
So, transitioning from after the first degree and stuff, like, before you got to run for office and stuff, were you shy? Did you get to first, like, run for, like, offices here on campus? Or how did you go about working the courage to step into the spotlight?
When I was in college, through Delta Sigma Chi, we did a lot of volunteer work on campaigns. And so the person would recruit us. We'd go out and walk precincts for candidates. We'd make phone calls for candidates. And I think that, that did help me in terms of not being a shy person and talking to people. I think that really helped. Being involved with Delta Sigma Chi really helped because it was a social organization. So you have to be constantly talking to people and I mean, you just have to they require you to do things that force you to speak publicly or to talk to folks, and so you develop those skills over the years. But you know what, I will say that when I got hired after college, I was working for an organization called the Young Women's Christians Association in the city of Compton, and my job was to be to do outreach work and to go out and give presentations about violence against women, domestic violence, sexual assault, and rape. And I will say that I was like, when I got hired, they didn't really tell me I was going to have to do public speaking. And I think the first probably year that I was required to do it, I was really terrified because I didn't feel like I had sufficient knowledge on the topic. So I ended up spending a lot of time learning about the topic, and that really helped me get more comfortable.
I know that when we take like health class and stuff like that in college, they talk about, that there's various types of abuse, and there's this thing called the cycle of abuse. Tell us about that.
Oh yeah, the cycle of violence. Basically, the cycle of violence is the emotional cycle that victims and perpetrators go through when there's instances of violence, whether it's emotional abuse or physical abuse or verbal abuse. So it kind of starts off with the honeymoon phase where everything is lovey-dovey, the couples are lovey-dovey, things are going really well. So that's like the honeymoon phase. And then the second phase is the tension building phase, when there's a disagreement over something or a perceived disagreement, then the couple begins to argue. And then there's the violent stage, whether that's physical violence or verbal abuse. It's when you're being yelled at, you're being demeaned, or you're being beat up. And then it starts over again. So there are 3 phases to the cycle of violence, and it's the honeymoon stage, the tension building stage, and then the violent phase. And unfortunately, it's a cycle. They call it a cycle because it just goes round and round and round, and until someone decides that they're going to end it.
And what tips do you have for people right now that are going through abuse?
I think it's very important to talk to somebody about it, and I speak as a survivor. I think it's very important to have somebody to talk to all the time. Um, you know, sometimes I think our family and friends know when a relationship is not healthy, and you might share things with them. And I think other times it's just important to reach out to a hotline, you know, someone who is totally unfamiliar with your relationship. There are plenty of hotlines available for victims of domestic violence. And, you know, I would say call a hotline and talk to somebody about it. I think that's the first step that anyone can take to begin to heal.
So, after the masters, at the time, were you already getting involved in city involvement at the time? You had mentioned, like, walk us through like the first stages, like the earlier positions leading up to how you got introduced to like politics and stuff.
Actually, I was a commissioner. I did serve as a public safety commissioner.
And what are commissions?
Commissions are basically advisory roles that are given to average citizens that will advise their elected body, like the council member, the mayor or council members, about certain issues impacting the community. For example, you know, there's a Parks and Recreation Commission, and the Parks and Recreation Commission will will advise the mayor and the council about what they think should or shouldn't be done in the Parks and Recreation Department. Public safety, that's the commission I served on. So we would advise the mayor and the council on areas that we thought needed improvement or not in the area of public safety. So dealing from street lights to block watch programs and services to how many deputies we thought should be patrolling the city and all of that good stuff. So so I was appointed to a commission, and that was one of the first jumping off points for me in terms of learning governance and leadership in my city.
And then after?
Then after that, let me say, I served on a commission. The city of Linwood used to have a very popular Hispanic Heritage Month event, and my family always participated. And so every year, like, our family would put together a booth with a bunch of artifacts from Mexico. And it was kind of like the fairs that they have now that I think you're familiar with. So our family was very instrumental in that. My mother was very involved in at City Hall back when they were planning the 105 freeway. Okay, this was like before they built it. So when they were planning to build the 105 freeway, because my house is 2 blocks away from there, so my mother got this notice from the city saying, hey, they're going to build a 105 freeway and it's going to go like 2 blocks away from you. So we're having these public hearings that you need to come and talk to us about what you think, what your thoughts are. So my mother, for whatever reason, thought they were going to take our house away and build it through our neighborhood. But that wasn't the case. And so as a little girl, I remember going with my mom to City Hall to sit in on meetings, informational meetings about the construction of the 105 freeway. So I guess to some degree or another, I've always been connected, whether it was through my mother's involvement. My mother was a block watch captain back in the 80s, in the early 80s. She was one of the first Latina block watch captains.
And tell us what block watch is.
Block watch is basically it's a neighborhood organization, informal organization of residents that basically exchange and share information with their neighbors about law enforcement, about, things that might be going on in the neighborhood, like any break-ins or it's basically a mechanism to bring law enforcement into our communities. And so my mother was, very involved with them. Yeah.
And then following that,
What else? So yeah, I mean, I just kind of felt like there was always, I was somehow always connected, and I was also, actually, before I was successful, because I mentioned that, I served on the city council from 2003 to 2007 in my hometown in the city of Linwood. I actually ran for office before that, and I ran unsuccessfully. I ran for city council, I think it was in 1999. I had just, finished school, and I was like, all right, I want to put all this public policy stuff to use in my community. And I ran for office, and I was not successful, but I stayed involved. And like I said, I served on the commission. I was working at the YWCA in the neighboring city of Compton, working to help victims. We created programs to help women that had been raped or that had been victims of domestic violence, and we created a program called the Sexual Assault Response Team, where when law enforcement got a call about a woman being raped or abused, this team of individuals that included an advocate, which is what I was, an advocate, the police officer, and then the nurse. And so we'd go to the hospitals, St. Francis Medical Center, Martin Luther King Hospital, Centinela Hospital in Inglewood, and basically counsel the woman to make sure that her rights were being protected and that she had the services that she needed.
and then after?
What else did I do? And then after that, I was a little burnt out from the work that I did, and I decided to transition into education. So from the YWCA, I started teaching for Linwood Unified School District, which was really a great experience for me, because I remember like walking on campus and actually seeing some of the teachers that I had at Linwood High School, and now being their colleague, so that was like really empowering for me. And so I taught for, Linwood Unified. After I got elected to the city council, I left teaching and I started working for a member of the state legislature. He was our former congressman, Mervyn Dimely. He asked me to come and work for him, so I left teaching and I started working for him. That was a lot of fun because I was able to learn about state government. Yeah. So I spent some time doing that, and after he termed out of office, I decided to go back to education, and I started teaching at Compton Community College. And that's, just been a great experience, and, education is my passion, and I've had an opportunity to mentor a lot of young people and kind of help them navigate their path and create their path to, higher education. And so that's kind of really where I am. I was asked in 2012 by Congressman Mervyn Dimely to run for office again, and it was his last campaign before he transitioned. And I got elected, and I've been serving on a water board representing the cities of Linwood, Compton, Southgate, Willowbrook, Florence, Firestone, Walnut Park area. For the past 5 years, I just got reelected last year.
And tell us what the water board is.
Basically, I'm elected to that water board, and then I'm also appointed to serve on the Metropolitan Water District of Southern California. And basically, what these water boards do is they're responsible for providing water to 22 cities in LA County. That's the Central Basin Board. The Metropolitan Water District Board is responsible for maintaining the infrastructure and managing the infrastructure that we use to bring water from the Colorado River and also the State Water Project into the communities that stretch from San Diego to Ventura County. So it's a big job. It's a big job. In fact, I had a board meeting earlier today. That's where I came from. And big responsibility. Water is life. And water is a very limited resource. And so it's our responsibility to manage it wisely, and that's pretty much what we do at the Metropolitan Water District and also at the Central Basin Water District.
Tell us about the tours and the technology, like solar power and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so we host these really great tours that basically help us teach our community how we bring water and how we maintain it. And the energy part of it is that you really need a lot of energy to bring water into the communities because it just doesn't naturally flow. So in order for you to bring the water into the communities, you need a source of energy to push it. So the Metropolitan Water District invested in a massive solar project to basically create the energy that we need to get the water pumped from Northern California and Colorado River. We also have a lot of projects that we're working on. One of the more recent one is a recycled water, a massive recycled water facility in the city of Carson. And that project will be solely responsible for recycling or cleaning up wastewater. And for those of you that are that may have seen like purple pipes or lavender color signs across this campus that say recycled water, basically that water is old sewer water. And so what's done to it is it's cleaned up to a legal level, and it's reused to irrigate parks and landscaping. So we also have another big project in the Metropolitan Water District area. It's a water desalinization plant. And so basically the water is drawn from the ocean and is the salt aspect of it is pulled out of the water, and then the ocean water is used also for irrigating. So yeah, it's a very exciting place to be. Like I said, there are very few things that we can live without, and air is one, water is another. And so it's our job to make sure that we provide our communities with a reliable and stable supply of clean water. And that's what we do.
Yeah, I remember hearing about CERT and how the fire department mentions, it's good to stock up on water and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
For disaster preparedness.
Right. Water is life, literally.
So walk us through, the differences between teaching at the public school level and, university, the stuff like that,
Or
the college, yeah.
I've had the privilege of teaching in the K through 12 system, in the community college system, and also I've taught graduate level courses in public administration. And I've really, really enjoyed every single teaching at every single level. Um, every, we have different needs at each stage of our life, different learning needs. And so, from the simplest things, like I did my student teaching at Stanford Elementary in Southgate, and it was first grade, and I had the privilege of learning how to teach kids one of the most basic and fundamental skills that we need to survive in the society, and that's reading. And it was one of the most rewarding experiences for me, because when school started, I was there for a year, and when school started, the kids knew their ABCs, but during the course of that first grade, they learned their sounds to the alphabets. They learned how to construct, short sentences. And by the end of the year, they could read, and it was one of the most rewarding experiences for me, to see that take place over the course of the year, because reading, in my opinion, is one of the most fundamental skills that you need to be a productive citizen in this society. So I really enjoyed that. When I was teaching in middle school, I taught at Linwood Middle School. And I was teaching kids about history. I taught history. And I had an opportunity to really teach kids what I learned in college, about the civil rights movement, about the Chicano movement, the Black Power movement, like all of the things that have gone on in this country that is not taught in the history books sometimes. I had an opportunity to teach those things to my students in the classroom, and it was very rewarding for me, because I found that kids feel very empowered when they learn about themselves and their own history. And so I really enjoyed that, in addition to not only helping some of the young kids, helping guide them, because I think a large part of being a teacher, whether you're teaching at an elementary school level or you're teaching at the university level, is mentorship. And so I've just really enjoyed every aspect of it. And at the college level, when you're working with students that are already working in their profession, a lot of my graduate students who were already working in their profession, who were earning their master's degrees so that they can either qualify for a promotion or get a pay increase. I mean, it was really great learning from them, because most of them were, in my opinion, already experts in their fields. And so I was able to kind of teach them the theory behind what they were already doing, and how they can connect the theory with their practice so that they can improve their skills in their respective professions.
How can people contact you?
You can contact me through email. My email is L as in Leticia, and then Vasquez, VASQUEZ, at centralbasin.org. And I'm available there, and always there to respond to questions or concerns.
The other question I ask is, where do you see yourself after retirement?
After retirement?
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I just really have not, I haven't really thought about that. Yeah, I haven't decided.
The other question I ask is, what would you like your legacy to be?
I would like my legacy to be that of, being a great educator and a great mentor. And that's pretty much what I would like my legacy to be. To be, that I set a good example for young people, and that I was able to uplift, others.
Tips for people that want to pursue the same career.
Tips? I would say, just be prepared for long days. I would say do a lot of reading. I mean, I think that goes without saying sometimes, but it's like, oh God, we got to read this. I do a lot of studying. I think taking on, the mindset of being a lifelong learner is very, very, very important in life because we never stop learning. We never know everything. So I think just kind of embracing that and seeing really life as a journey, a journey of different phases. I guess that's why I don't think of retirement because I kind of see it as, okay, well, what's the next phase? What's the next phase? I guess at some point I will start thinking like, well, the next phase should be retirement.
Let's address people who say, I've never heard of Linwood. Where is Linwood?
Right. You know what? I always say, when people ask me, well, where's Linwood? And then I say, everyone knows where Compton is, right? So I'm like, well, we're right next door to Compton. Oh, okay, now I know where Compton is. Now I know where Linwood is. So that's usually what my reference point. I ask folks if they know where Compton is. And then I just say, hey, Linwood is a small knit community. It was founded. It's I think maybe almost 80 years old, it was a farming community at one point, and it's grown into a city of almost 70,000 residents. And it's a great city. We have a lot of programs. Our city offers a lot of great programs at the Parks and Recreation Department. It's in a great place. We're 15 minutes away from Long Beach. We are 10 minutes away from LAX. We're 15 minutes away from downtown LA. And I just think it's a really, it's a great place to be in LA County.
Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to be here on the Golden Spotlight.
Thank you.